God bless everybody. Today it is July 20th of 2024, and this is a video that I believe shows us that the Bible actually gives us the date of the Hamas attack on October 7th of 2023. Now I know that's saying a lot, but follow with me in this study and I believe you will actually see this date pop up. Now, I had originally been working off the Gregorian calendars and had not converted everything to Hebrew dates at the end before that attack happened. I had just converted them and I had placed this stuff on my paradigm charts so that I was watching a gap of time because I did not know exactly how to use the Jewish calendars at that time, and I do now. So I'm going to show you how this works much easier than I could back then. I had set a time slot before the attack between September 18th and October 9th because I didn't know how the calendars were working exactly, and I figured that out in the past 8 or 9 months so that I could actually make the paradigm dates proper and that we're working off the Jewish calendars and not the Gregorian calendars, because as a Christian we don't use the Hebrew calendars, but once you use the Hebrew calendars it opens up doors that you can't imagine, because now you're on God's calendar working with his feast days in Leviticus 23, in his commandments, in his Torah, through his laws, and how God thinks and not how we think. And so that's extremely important that we understand that we have to use the two Jewish calendars, a civil calendar and a prophetic calendar, basically. And so it's extremely important. This is the calendar that I want to show you that applies to Daniel 10, and how once I converted the dates to the proper dates in the Hebrew calendar that's shown in front of you, it gives you the date of October 7th of 2023 that we would see an attack occur on there. So I had done a paradigm update and converted all these Gregorian date calendars, the Hebrew date calendars, around September 21st of 2023, which was about 9 months ago. And I indicated in here that we really needed to watch these dates around October 9th because the paradigm was alluding that we would see an attack by Israel on Iran, or a proxy of Iran would attack Israel, or whatever might happen. But there was a massive event occurring in Daniel 10, and that if we looked at how it was presented through the angel Gabriel and how Michael affects the situation, that we would understand that around October 9th, based on the Gregorian calendar dates, that we would see something really interesting happen. Now, I was starting to convert these to Hebrew calendar dates at this time, but I didn't have quite it all figured out. I knew I had to convert them. I knew I had to move it from Gregorian to Hebrew dates, but I was still doing a hand physical count on the calendars, and so I was getting it wrong until I actually went out to the Jewish calendars and I could actually see the dates on the calendars themselves. And then once I broke it out, I realized it actually gave us October 7th of 23 as the physical date of the attack of Hamas on Israel. And I know that's saying a lot, but I think if you follow me here, you'll understand what I'm talking about by the end of this video. So I had put this video together on September 21st of 23, and I had alluded that we were going to see something happen in this gap period of time. And if you go out to my chart back in this video, which I will bring up now, I had indicated on this chart that we would see, based on the conversions that I had at the time, something interesting would happen between September 18th of 2023 and October 9th of 2023, which would be this attack based on Daniel 10. And I'll go into the chapter so you can see where I'm getting all this from, but I just want you to realize that this was predicted because it's in the Bible. He gives us this very specific date as you move forward into Daniel 10, and I'm going to show you how this all works. I want to show you that I had indicated these dates, almost a month prior to the actual attack. Also on the chart, hopefully you guys can see this, I indicated that September 18th, Daniel was sickened for 3 weeks and was having a vision from God. And then 21 days later, Michael shows up with Gabriel and talks about how he's been fighting with the Persian Empire and he's getting ready to go back against Persia, but he's been doing this for 21 days and he's there warning Daniel that this has been happening. So it's almost like an after effect. The attacks happened, you're distressed because for 21 days you've seen this buildup happen, things are breaking, and now I'm here to give you a message that this is ordained by God and this is going to happen, and it happened in the past, it will happen in the future. So let's go to Daniel 10 and I'll show you what I'm talking about and how I had spotted this before the actual event happened. And I was warning people, even though I don't have any following, I'm trying to warn people what I'm seeing before things happen so that people can get ready. But I say, when nobody's willing to listen or they don't necessarily believe you're telling them the truth, they just turn you off. And I'm much more radical than a lot of teachers, and so most people will just turn me off due to my technique or whatever, and maybe it's just the way I present the message or whatever. But regardless, I'm doing the best I can to give you this information, and hopefully God's leading me to allow you to see it. Okay, so let's look at Daniel 10. I'll try to explain to you how I came up with this. Now realize this all works off the paradigm, and what I mean by that is I have found in the Bible that there's a running paradigm that reflects 3 older kings of the past to 3 modern day kings of today, and that we will see a history lesson play out from past to future, and that if we can lock these 3 kings down that reflect the 3 kings of today, and we apply it to the date stamps he gives us in the book itself, in the Bible, in these chapters that I've been giving you. The verses have attached verses for a reason, because they give you those date stamps, and then once you break them out from Gregorian, which you don't even have to do anymore, you just go right to the Jewish calendar. Okay, and that's where I was wrong to begin with. I was using a conversion date when I actually should have been using the Hebrew calendar dates, which would just take you to the physical date itself, which is what I'm going to show you right now. Okay, that's how important this is, and that's how cool this is, that he's giving us these dates prior to things happening. So in Daniel 10, he talks about in the 3rd year of the king of Persia, there's a thing that's revealed to Daniel, and that he's appointing this for a long time vision that's going to happen in the future, basically. And so he comes out and tells him, and Daniel's writing this in his book to explain this to us, of this vision that he has, that in these days, Daniel, this is Daniel speaking, writing this to us to warn us, that he was mourning for 3 full weeks, or 21 days in general. Okay, he ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine to his mouth. So he was fasting because he's trying to understand why he's seeing these terrible things, and that he did anoint himself, and he did this for 3 whole weeks. Okay, and so what's going on here? Now Daniel is under Cyrus, so this is the 4th king that Daniel has been under, because he's been in captivity for 70 years, and he's been in captivity since he was like 15, and now he's into the very end of the time of captivity. It tells you that he's under Cyrus, so we understand that because we understand the lineage of the kings that go up to Cyrus and the history of Daniel and the kings that he went through based on Daniel 1 through 12. Then he says, look, I have been mourning for 3 weeks because Daniel is a hierarchy in the Persian kingdom. He's like third in command. He knows what's going on in the kingdom as well as he's watching Persia attacking his nation in Israel, and he can't do anything about it because he's a Jew. And he's not going to make Cyrus upset when Cyrus has him on his good side, and Cyrus is actually working to bring, um, you know, the Torah back to a certain degree. He brings the Jews back, he rebuilds the temple, he does all these things. And so Daniel doesn't want to upset him, and it's not Daniel's job to upset him. So Daniel's having this terrible time of 3 weeks where he's watching this destruction of his nation, Israel, by the Persians, and he's asking God, what is going on and why is this happening? And so he's fasting and he's probably praying and he's having visions at night and all kinds of different things. And then he says, look, I've eaten nothing. I put nothing in my mouth. I'm so distraught at what's happening, and I'm watching my country basically being pummeled by Persia, and they're under massive duress. And then look at what he says here, and this is where it gets interesting. So in verse 4, Daniel is giving us some really important information, and I mean extremely important information that's going to work down through this chapter. He indicates basically on the 24th day of the first month of Tishri, based on the Jewish calendars, that he was standing by the great river Hezekiah when he has this vision of this man coming down, clothed in linen, gold, and all these things, and that he's going to give Daniel a vision. Okay? So if you go to the Jewish calendars, you'll realize that Tishri falls somewhere between September and October, depending on the year, because it's on a 360-day calendar, and it works off the Feast of Trumpets, which is the very first day of the new year, which would be Tishri 1, okay? So Daniel would have his vision on the 24th day of Tishri, and like Michael says, I've been basically fighting Persia for 21 days, and then I come forward towards you and I give you a vision of the things that you just saw, and I'm going to explain what's happening to your nation and why. And so Daniel is now being talked to by the angel Michael, as well as Gabriel, which is explaining all this to him in Daniel 10. So when you come out to the Jewish calendars and you look up Tishri 1, which would have been so much easier than me trying to hand count it out and make sure that I'm wrong and I'm giving you bad information, Tishri 1 falls on Rosh Hashanah on September 16th of 2023. So if you go to the and look up the Feast of Trumpets, when it begins on the Friday of September 15th of 2023 and ends on September 17th of 23. But if you go to the Jewish calendar and look at it, it's actually September 16th and 17th. Okay, so that's extremely important to the time zone that we're talking about here, because now you're into the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, the very first day of the Feast of Trumpets would be Rosh Hashanah. Why is that important? In my opinion, it's important because if we go from September 16th of 2023 and add 21 days to it, it gives you the date of October 7th of 2023, which would be in the attack of Hamas on Israel. How cool is that? I'm just saying, guys, he put it in the Bible. He gave you this date if we can just figure out how to decipher it. I almost had the date if I just known it wasn't a Gregorian conversion to Hebrew and I wasn't trying to do a hand count. I was using their calendar dates, and it actually worked out perfectly. So Daniel's been mourning for 3 weeks, and then on the 24th day of Tishri, he has a vision. So it's after the attack. And that's what I'm saying. If you go back and look at the attack on Israel from Hamas, they attacked on October 7th, and they really didn't get their act together for a couple days to retaliate against Hamas until like October 9th or 10th. And that's in the newspapers that when they first go in and start to actually go against Hamas because they've cleaned up their interior borders and taken care of all the threats inside, and then they organize to go into Hamas and Palestine as an invasionary force. That doesn't happen until like October 10th or 11th. And so Daniel's saying that, look, he has this vision on the 24th day of Tishri. So the 24th day of Tishri is the date that I thought we would see, which is October 9th. Now, I wasn't thinking that Daniel had a vision after, I wasn't sure how it all worked. I didn't realize Daniel would have a vision after the fact. That on the 24th day of Tishri, on October 9th, he would see this vision of these two angels come to him right after the attack on October 7th of 2023, and so that he would understand what's coming up, and he would also understand what just happened. So when you come to the date calculator and you plug in the very first day of the Feast of Trumpets, which is September 16th of 23, and you add 21 days to it, which is the time that Daniel's been told that Michael's been attacking them, that takes you to the exact date of October 7th of 2023 when the actual attack occurred. And then Daniel had his vision basically 2 to 3 days after that on October 9th. Okay? That's how specific the Bible is in telling us what's coming. And that's why I built this paradigm, because it's a real-time chart of what is coming up in the future. And it not only uses the Jewish calendars of the sun and moon, which God uses, both of them. The Quran uses the moon as their calendar dates and what they work off of. The Jewish people, or the Gregorian calendar, the Gregorian calendar, or we work off the sun, where the Jewish calendars work off the sun and moon. And so you need both calendars to understand what's coming up, and you need to follow the Jewish calendars, not our calendars, to determine what's going on out here. So when Daniel says, look, on the 24th day of Tishri, I have this vision, you need to understand when he's talking about this. And most Gentiles or Christian nations don't use the Jewish calendar, so they wouldn't understand any of this. But once you start to convert it, you see it. So on the very first day of the Feast of Trumpets during Rosh Hashanah, we start to see these 21 days of attacks of Michael going against Persia. So there's this ramp up of attacks on Israel from these proxies. And then what happens when you get into October 7th of 2023, we see an invasion. Okay, so that's extremely important. Now when you click on that date and you see the events that have happened in the Jewish history, there's nothing really out here that gives us anything that would lead us to believe that there will be an attack on this time, other than Daniel 10 tells us that this is coming. And so I think it's extremely important that we look at what Daniel's telling us in Daniel 10 so that we can understand the events that are coming up. So I brought a lot of this out in the text file so that you can see this. This is all about Daniel 10. Like I say, he's been mourning for 3 weeks or 21 days. He has a vision on the 24th day of Tishri, which is in this case October 9th, based on the calendars. He has a vision. He's standing on the river Hedekiah. These two angels come to him. Gabriel is basically talking to him and tells him that Michael's going against Persia. That after Daniel has this vision, he's been told what has come, or what has happened, and what's going to happen, okay? Because Michael's getting ready to go again against the nation of Persia and its proxies, because they're under siege in Jerusalem. And so if you look at verse 13 in Daniel 10, it says, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me for 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the king of Persia. So Michael's still going against the king of Persia even after the vision is given to him. This is not something that ends up overnight, and it's going to continue. I've made some notes here in the middle of this that say I believe the Bible tells us that the date that Hamas would attack and invade Israel. If you take the first day of Tishri, which is October 16th to 23, which would be the start of the new Jewish civil year and the Feast of Trumpets, and add 21 days, it lands directly on the date of the Hamas attack of October 7th of 2023. And this attack is the start of the Hamas war. It takes a little while for Israel then to go back into Palestine and start their occupation and elimination of the threat of these terrorists, which happens around the 24th day of Tishri, which is on October 9th when Daniel received the vision. And then he says, I'm going to make you understand this is a latter day vision that will happen many days from where you are now. At the very end of time, you're going to see this happen. So it's extremely important as you walk through here that he's given us this date. Then he says in verse 20, then said he, knowest thou, therefore I come upon thee, and I will return to fight with the prince of Persia, and when I am gone forth, lo, the king or the prince of Grecia, Turkey, shall come. And that's what I've been talking about in 2 Kings 24, Daniel 10, Daniel 8, all these different places about how Turkey is getting ready to come down in through Syria, down into Lebanon, down into Palestine. He'll actually end up in Egypt. He'll end up back in Tyre, go over to Erbil, take out the Kurds, which will align with Iran. He'll destroy Iran and the Kurds. That will combine that nation of Persia into Ezekiel 38, and then he'll go back against Israel based on the paradigm that I'm showing you around July or so of 25, based on when the 9th of Av occurs and the walls are broken down and different things like that. So it's extremely important that we put this all into context. So if you go to my free Wix site, endofdaysurvival.com, we're going to use the same file we've been using for quite a while here, this last text file or PDF file. If you click on that, that will bring up my paradigm chart that we've been using for some time now. That brings you into my chart, and we'll be looking at this area here. Okay, you're over around in here now, around Turkey and all this that's getting ready to break out into September. And as we move forward in the next 6 or 8 months into March, which I believe is a sixth seal event, we're going to concentrate on this small section of information here. And then in a video just prior to this, a month or so, and I've been talking about this for a couple months, but I did a video a month or so before, it was on September 21st of 23, that we would see during September 16th of 23 and October 7th. So I'm in the middle of this when I'm making the video, trying to warn you that we're watching this massive buildup into a potential attack of Hamas, and that Hamas attacks and invades Israel through Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, which happens on October 7th. Okay, on my new chart. But I had shown you originally in the video just prior to the event on September 21st of 2023, as it indicates here, that I already knew something was coming. That during September 18th of 2023 and October 9th of 2023, we would see something happen over there that was going to affect Israel tremendously. Now, I didn't know exactly what, because the Bible's a little vague in exactly what this attack is. But something happened. And so I thought I better bring it to people's attention. So I have. And so I just want you to realize that the Bible explains all this stuff to us. This is extremely important, and that you can see the future if you know how to unlock the Bible. So this is extremely important information. That's why I believe in this last video that I did just prior to this, which talks about Amos 8, which I just did this morning, that we're going to see a warning of possibly about the Feast of Trumpets, 2024, on October 2nd of 2024, we could potentially see a biblical event of a solar eclipse that will affect the world and send a sign to the nations that the Lord is getting ready to start judgment on everybody. And so I just did this morning. Extremely important. It also works off the calendars of the Jewish Hebrew calendars, and that this is extremely important information that you guys should be following. You know, as you think about this, Revelation is a revealing of information in the end times. He gave you a survival manual. He built all this into a paradigm. He put it in a book called the Bible, and then he gave you specific dates on when things are going to happen as we move forward into the future, and that you can unleash and unseal these things and present them to the masses so that they can see this coming, and that they'll hopefully get their oil in their lamp and get prepared for what's getting ready to happen, which is going to be ugly in the next 8-9 months as we work through the time of now to April 25, and we see a sixth seal pop, 4 trumpets go off, and an antichrist rise before a signing of a treaty on potentially April 10th of 2025, prior to the 1260 days of antichrist reign on this planet to the Feast of Trumpets of September 21st of 2028. That this is extremely important. And I've charted all this stuff out, and I've also added all of these lunar and solar eclipses on the bottom, which correlate to all these different events above you. And then also, if you go into the paradigm portions of this, you're going to see that all of these different events in the sequence of things that are going to happen in the next little over 4 years literally have attached verses, because the paradigm is built into the Bible based on the month of the year of that king from past to future, and how it mirrors or reflects it exactly. What happened in the past is basically going to happen in the future. Not exactly, but the events are going to fall pretty close. And so I think, it is modern warfare to old style, chariots and things. This is modern day warfare. Totally different type of battle, totally type of different war. A lot of things are going on here that weren't going on in Daniel's time due to the technologies and things. And so things are going to happen much quicker probably, and be more aggressive in its ability to do destruction on this planet due to the technology that we have built into our systems. And so it's extremely important. And there's that date of April 10th, 2025, where we see the rising of Antichrist. Just prior to this, prior to April of 25, you see these trumpets go off. The rising of Antichrist and false prophet happen when the bottomless pit opens on the 5th trumpet. The rising of the Antichrist and the false prophet and the 4 winds are released on the 6th trumpet. And the Lord comes back on the 7th trumpet, on the final trumpet. He tells you this, that you have a 1260-day gap between the signing of the treaty to the Feast of Trumpets of 28, September 21st. And this is the demarcation between tribulation to abomination of desolation, which would start great tribulation that would take you through basically the end of the story. So I just wanted to bring all this information to you. I believe it's extremely important, and I believe that you can map this stuff out. I know a lot of people get upset with my date structures and things, but it is what it is. I'm showing you that you can actually unlock a lot of these dates. When you've got the Feast of Trumpets being affected so greatly in so many years with these lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, and all these different things that lead you into a prophecy of a specific date when Hamas could have attacked, that's pretty incredible. But once you get into March of this next year, this whole section is all March, and this is terrible. And I'm going to do a video on this because it's going to take a video to go through all these different things that are occurring to the signing of the treaty on April 10th of 2024 or 25 through the 1260 days of Antichrist to the Feast of Trumpets of 28 prior to the strong generation of Israel ending. Okay, so that's extremely important. The strong generation of Israel ends on May 14th of 2028 or within that year. That then takes you to the end of the Shemitah cycle. And so we're playing into this, and you can see when the Shemitah cycle actually ends here. There's a whole bunch of blood moon events leading up to that. But if we're removed on the Feast of Trumpets of September 21st of 28, and that is actually raptured during the fall feast, we won't be here for any of these bowls, and we're not appointed for the bowls at the end here anyway. So I've just built this out because that takes us out into the 1,000 years. And this is extremely important because if you look at the hour of God's wrath, you go from the Feast of Trumpets. There's actually a 10-day war to Yom Kippur. Then you have a marriage ceremony, and then we're finally tabernacling with God around October 5th of 2028. So hopefully I made some sense of that. I don't do conversions anymore from Gregorian to Hebrew, and we're just using the Jewish calendars as we should be to determine what God is telling us in the paradigm as well as in the Bible so that we can understand what's coming up in the future. So God bless everybody. Have a great day. Have an awesome Sabbath, and because today's Saturday, and be concerned about as we move forward. There is a lot happening out here. You had Trump almost assassinated. Joe Biden is probably going to be removed due to physical problems due to COVID and other things called Alzheimer's dementia and a number of other things that he probably has. And so they're going to bring Kamala Harris in. They're going to have to put a new ticket together for the DNC convention in August. That's probably not going to go out well because there's no one that can stand against Trump now that he's been shot in the head and is basically a martyr on the right side of the Republican side, and it's going to be hard to counter that with anyone on the left. And so I've been talking about this. You should be concerned about this as we move into that Feast of Trumpets of October 2nd, that we're going to start to see a breakdown prior to the November election into this period of time of this sixth seal event around March of this next year in 25, moving into an Antichrist phase. So extremely important, guys, that you're starting to see this stuff, and we're going to watch the whole globe, the world, start to break down and disintegrate with a massive judgment against Israel as we move forward, as well as all other nations. But a lot of what I put in the last video with the solar eclipse on the Feast of Trumpets of October 2nd is a judgment primarily against the Jewish people and how they're going to be placed under judgment to the point where probably 2/3 of their population is going to be reduced prior to the removal of the remnant for the 1260 days prior to the Feast of Trumpets of 2028, which ends up here. So God bless, have a great night, and be safe out there and get your oil ready because things are getting ready to break. And I want to stress one last thing. The most important thing, regardless of all the charts and everything, is that you get right with the Lord Jesus Christ, because he is the open door to get you to the next level of existence, into the millennial or the eternity, depending on where you end up. Okay, so this is, I don't do a lot on salvation. I've had people complain here lately that you're not trying to save anybody. Yes, I am. I'm telling you what's coming so you'll get right with Jesus put your skeletons out there in front of him so you'll get right with him, understand about the laws, the Torah, the calendars and things, so that you're on a better page with him, so you can move forward and be closer to God and Jesus, so that when the time comes and rapture actually does happen, you're ready and you know the open door is Jesus. God bless.